You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
There we go. Good afternoon to you and welcome to our very, very special Scottish Football Zone. This is the channel where we react to the big Scottish football news, and there has been news broken in the past half an hour out of Celtic Park. Maybe it was the worst kept secret ever, I'm not sure. But Wilfried Nancy is away from Celtic, joined today by Regan and Heidi as well, and hopefully soon we'll be joined by Ethan and Robbie to comment on that. What about your reaction to that? And also we're joined by Alan Risk. Welcome to the show, mate. Good to see you again. Your reaction to the news, Regan, that Nancy's away?
My reaction is so long farewell. I think Nancy is one of the worst Scottish football appointments in recent memory. I don't think that it's Nancy's fault that he was appointed Celtic manager. I think the problem lies with Dermot Desmond and Peter Lowell. And I'm also glad to see that Paul Tisdale has been sacked as well, Michael. So I think in general, Celtic have shown a bit of backbone, and that's all the supporters wanted to see. I think that Nancy's position was untenable after last weekend's match against Rangers. I felt it was untenable against the first match they played against Hearts. I just felt like you could clearly see that guy was in the wrong movie. But I think from a Celtic point of view, Celtic have bored up to the backbone and have actually went out there and sacked Nancy, so fair play to them.
Heidi, what your reaction to that? I'm sure you're very, very happy.
I'm delighted. I thought it was fake, and then I looked on my phone, Nancy sacked, and I didn't believe it at first. Then I looked on the Celtic website, and I was like, honestly, just thank God he's away. I think it was going to get a lot worse for him. After that Rangers result, I just felt there was enough is enough. Like, if you're a Celtic manager, you can't be losing 6 out your 8 games. Like, it doesn't happen. It's no calibre, and I think he's probably one of the worst Celtic managers I've ever seen. He just didn't have the style to know what Celtic meant. He just didn't have the attribute, and it was just a bad appointment. And at least the board have actually acted and realised it was a bad appointment. So we'll just need to see if there's going to be an intern manager or an actual manager. We'll see what happens. But I'm absolutely delighted he's away, and it's for the best. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically, Celtic have parted company with Wilfried Nancy after Saturday's defeat by Rangers 3-1, and he had 6 losses in just 8 matches. What an embarrassment! I'll go down in Scottish history as the worst manager in. Well, certainly in Celtic's history, but maybe in Scottish football history. So Ethan has joined us as well for the show. Ethan, what's your reaction to the news today?
So one of the, well, it may sound crazy the word I'm about to use, surprise, but not surprise of that Wilfried Nancy's lost his job based on the performances of himself and his team as Celtic manager, but surprised that the Celtic board have acted in a quick manner to dismiss the manager, which I think quite clearly had lost the players. If you look at Luke McKeown's comments the other day, and I think they had to act. I think they've trapped themselves into a corner slightly in getting another manager, and whether they will go into the market again to try and get another permanent manager is another question. I'm leaning towards there being an interim and possibly until the end of the season, but obviously we don't know. And I think the Celtic fans will be very happy, as I heard Heidi was there, and also probably very happy with the removal of Paul Tisdale, who hasn't done a lot, and looking at his CV probably wasn't too qualified for the job in the first place. So yeah, Celtic board being active and doing some positive things, which will obviously please the Celtic fans, but I think it doesn't change the narrative. I think the Celtic fans' stance on the board, or certainly most of their stances on the board, will still remain the same.
And Reagan, it's a bonkers season in Scottish football, but it's a bonkers season for Celtic as well. But also, that means for you and the rest of the Celtic fans is they've still got a wee kind of outside chance of winning the league. I know it's a big if, but
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, I said on Friday when me and Heidi were on, I said that I do believe that Nancy will be sacked, and I do believe that if he is sacked, then Celtic have got a great chance of winning the title. And I still firmly believe that. I still think that Rangers and Hearts, respectively, will drop points. And I still think that Celtic have got a great chance of winning this title. I just think over the past few weeks, I think the blame stayed with Wilfried Nancy. I just think the players from day dot did not buy into what he was saying.
Ethan, there was rumours last night about Celtic fans were told to boycott the game. Now, I don't know if you're going to ask 60,000 to boycott the game because they bought their season tickets and all that as well. But I mean, by hearing that news today of Wilfried Nancy's departure from Celtic Park, I think there'll be a full house at the game now.
Yeah, I think there probably will be, and they'll be excited to see whoever it is in the dugout come Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, Saturday. I thought it was Saturday. Home to Dundee United. Jim Goodwin probably would have been licking his lips at the prospect of facing Wilfried Nancy for the second time. But obviously that's not going to be the case now. And I think it'll probably be, unless we hear anything else, I'm thinking it's going to be Sean Maloney that's going to take charge at the minute. Rumours of Martin O'Neill coming back into the fold. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of them again. And I think Celtic fans will be happy with that because they were a lot more successful under that pair than they were Wilfried Nancy and his backroom staff. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where Celtic go in these next few days and weeks, and who maybe they do appoint a permanent manager. I've seen a lot of Celtic fans actually looking at Jens Berthalaska, the Motherwell manager, who's been very impressive. One of the best managers in the league, if not the best manager in the league this season. So yeah, I've seen a few Celtic fans floating that idea, but I think probably too early. He's only been there 6 months, and he's done an excellent job, but I think he'll be really judged come the end of the season.
Heidi, who do you want? Would you like to see Martin O'Neill back?
I mean, if it is to happen, I would take Martin O'Neill or Sean Maloney till the end of the season, or even just Sean Maloney, one of the two. I think they had more success, and they obviously knew the standards of Celtic Football Club. They knew how he worked with the players, and it was they won 7 of their last 8 games, so it was working, and I think they should have just kept him, in my opinion. But obviously they brought in Nancy to see how it worked, but then Nancy just completely disastered. But nah, if it is Sean Maloney or O'Neill to the end of the season or to whatever to get a permanent manager, and that's absolutely fine. I'm absolutely happy with that, and I think that Parkhead will definitely probably be a full house on Saturday. And I think it was just a mistake, and hopefully the board are realising now they have to get this new appointment right. They can't muck it up this time. They can't, because then fans are going to be on their backs yet again, and it's just they're just not going to have it. So they need to make the right appointment this time. They can't go just for somebody because they feel like they need to figure out the right appointment and who's suited to Celtic and who wants it. Not just somebody that's just going to be arrogant all the time and just come up with excuses. So we'll see what happens as of Saturday. Sue's in the dugout, but I'm pleased he's away.
I mean, Ethan, when you look at it as well, like we've spoke over the past couple of weeks, especially when Nancy came into Celtic, right? If you knew that you had like 3 big games, right, including Roma, Hearts, and St Mirren in the League Cup final, you wouldn't change the system until maybe you would change wee bits and bobs after these 3 games, or maybe just leave it until pre-season. Could come in and change everything.
Yeah, I can understand why he done it. I think it was quite naive of him, but I do understand why he done it, because he had to learn what players fit into that system that he wanted to play, and ultimately learn that almost none of them could play in the system that he wanted to play. And I think that's why he loses his job, because no matter how well Celtic played in parts of games, they couldn't get any. Well, they got 2 wins, obviously, but a 25% win rate is nowhere near good enough for Celtic, and why he'll go down as the worst Celtic manager all time in the same breath as Russell Martin in the same season as he probably went down as the Rangers worst manager all time. So it's been a crazy season for Scottish football, and hopefully it continues. And yeah.
As you can see, Aaron Risk has joined us on the show. Good to see you again. Happy New Year. What do you think of this? Well, I'm going to say the bonkers season of Scottish football.
Yeah, I mean, obviously today, Tulane and Nancy go, and that just kind of, it feels like a crazy day, but it's another crazy day in what's been an absolutely crazy season. And obviously, Falkirk have been a massive part of that. I think we were looking forward to, as an attacking football team, playing Nancy Celtic twice over the course of January. And I can say probably collectively that a lot of Falkirk fans will be disappointed to see that he's gone, because that only increases Celtic's chances of success. I think it was Martin O'Neill's debut, or his second debut rather, when Celtic beat us 4-0. So I think part of us were hoping that if we get to play them, we might be we played Martin's Rangers, drew 1 each. That got him the sack. He got escorted out the Falkirk Stadium by the police. We played, obviously, and beat Tuline's Aberdeen at the weekend. He lost his job. So there was every chance that if we got on a result against Nancy, then that could have ended his reign. But obviously it's not to be, and he's away already. But no, it's a crazy season. It's a brilliant season for a lot of clubs, and Falkirk, St Mirren, obviously, and anybody who's in the top half at the moment in terms of your Motherwells and Hearts. But I think this sacking will probably disappoint the majority of the league.
So, where does that leave Celtic now, Reagan? As I said to Heidi at the beginning of the show, we get to see Martin O'Neill back, and also as well, we had a comment from James Elliott is watching on YouTube. He was saying that Celtic needs to make the next appointment right. I think Heidi makes that point very well there. But he says a good level of experience. What about Martin, Sean, and Fozzie? Well, for all people that doesn't know Fozzie out there, it's not Fozzie the Bear, it's Mark Fordingham. Do you think that you'll see them from now until the end of the season?
Me personally, Michael, I think it'll be Sean Maloney. I think Sean Maloney will take it. I don't think Martin O'Neill will be back in it. I think it'll be Sean Maloney, but I think Sean Maloney is better than Wilfried Nancy for me, because Wilfried Nancy was not getting a tune out of these players. These players had stopped playing for Wilfried Nancy after they got beaten 2-1 by Hearts, and then they go on and get beat by Dundee United. I think it was Robbie or Ethan that made the point yesterday. See, as soon as anyone changes their tactics against Wilfried Nancy, they go on and win the game. You look at the game against Dundee United. I mean, Dundee United changed their tactics against Celtic. They go on and win the game. So the Rangers, so the Hearts, and so does everybody else that Celtic are playing. Celtic are too easy to play against. You look at someone who, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think Scales has been Celtic's best player this season. And the fact that he's not even playing now because of Wilfried Nancy's stubbornness to not play a back four as well, I think it just shows you the complete arrogance of the former Celtic manager.
Ethan?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I think Liam Scales probably was Celtic's best player before Wilfried Nancy comes in, and then it's quite obvious that he doesn't really have a space to fit in the system Wilfried Nancy wants to play, so that's why he doesn't play. But yeah, I think I don't know if I'd maybe go as far to say arrogant. I think that's quite a strong word. I get where Reagan's coming from, but I would say naivety certainly
Yeah,
to
naive.
Wilfried Nancy's stint at Celtic, and I think he had to be removed. I do feel quite sorry for the guy, same as I did with Russell Martin come the end, but I think it had to happen, didn't it? There was no other way that it was going to go, and it was just going to drag on if Celtic didn't get rid of him. And luckily that they have pretty quickly. But as Alan said, luckily probably only for Celtic rather than anybody else in the league.
I don't know about you, how you do right, but see, basically the best way to describe this is if you go to the cinema with your partner the weekend and you walk into the wrong movie and you say, "Oh, I've spent about £20 on the wrong movie." I think that's the best way
Um,
to describe Nancy.
Yeah, I think he's just put in there too big a job. I think Celtic was far too big a job for Nancy. I think that he obviously coming from the MLS, like the MLS is obviously don't know really much about it, but it's not the obviously greatest league, you know what I mean? Scottish Premiership's a whole different ball game, you know what I mean? I think he's just came in at a really bad time in the wrong time, and I just think the job was too big for him, and it just didn't work. And that's the thing. Like some managers suit certain clubs, and for me, Wilfried Nancy just did not suit Celtic. Like I remember when, like obviously we appointed him, and I was trying to give him, the back, and I was like, you know what, maybe this could be another Postecoglou story, Obviously everybody slated Ange, you all sat by Christmas, and then Ange goes and wins as a league and wins as a cup, you know what I mean? But this time it was just so much different. Ange had a philosophy, Ange had time, he had obviously had pre-season, he had like friendlies, he had time to sign players. Wilfred Nancy's obviously had none of that, and obviously it's just not been the best for him at all. Obviously I do feel a wee bit sorry for him, obviously, but I think if he was still here by Saturday, there would have probably more riots, and he'd probably end up, targets towards him, and it's not nice. So I think it was for best for him just to go, and I think the board have finally made the right call when they had to.
And and I think as well, before bringing this comment up about from Graham Watson on YouTube, thanks for watching. Ethan Heidi makes a brilliant point as well, because at the end of the day, okay, say what you want about the man, but he's only doing a job as a human being. And I mean, I don't think any of us in our place of work would like somebody to come in and basically tell him to get to wherever kind of thing, I don't like seeing that in everyday life, every sport, but sadly it's kind of like creeping into football now, Ethan.
Yeah, not everything can be not everybody can have a success, and not everybody can be a success, and that's what we've seen this season with two managers who have came into to both Rangers and Celtic now, and people have debated whether they're up to the task when they've been brought in, whether they have enough experience, whether they've got the character to be a Rangers or Celtic manager, and I think we've seen that possibly that they don't. What I will say for Wilfried Nancy is that, like Graham said, I think in another universe, maybe Celtic do win those games, but ultimately, as we always say, it's a results-driven business, and Celtic couldn't get the results. 25% win rate, as I mentioned, it's just not good enough, and he had to go before it got even more ugly than it already was. And yeah, I'm sure that he'll be a successful coach somewhere in the future, but it wasn't Celtic in the year of 2025 into 2026, and that's for sure. And yeah, the MLS is a whole different ball game to the Scottish Premiership. I think we've worked that out over the years, and it's a whole different atmosphere, and you could say sometimes it's a whole different sport.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of if buts and maybes are them right, but if Nancy came in at the beginning of the season, would you say that the situation would be different in terms of he would have a bit of a pre-season to work with the team. I know we're talking on hindsight here, but I mean, do you think the situation would be a wee bit different?
I think the situation would absolutely be completely different. There might still be that teething period, but if he comes in at the start of the season, he comes in during the summer transfer window. So he's able to straight away see if you have two of these games where they're getting XG worth 4 goals and can he put any more than one past an opponent or they're getting beat when they should be putting games out of sight, then straight away you go, right, a striker's a priority. And the one thing that is a shame for Nancy is that he's not been given a couple of weeks in January just to see what would happen. Because I do think you look at the game in the first half against Rangers, the game should have been put to bed. Previous games, it's been the exact same story. And it's one of those, as a manager or as a fan, I think you look at what O'Neill did, and he came in and he got assistant that got results, and some big results he got, especially the away in Europe. And I think there's an element of Nancy could have been a bit smarter, should have been a bit smarter in hindsight, to kind of go, this doesn't work just now. I've tried it for 2 games and I can't risk it in the final. I think he's in the cup final or whatever, and he maybe should have reverted to what was working. And that will be called arrogance, but I also think you guys can tell me, but there's no way that Celtic board, I get the feeling that at the very least Nancy's an honest character, and he would have told Celtic's board exactly what he was going to do regardless of the results from the get-go. No one's going to be under any dispute about, oh, I didn't know he was going to play that system week after week. He would have told them exactly the style of football he plays, exactly how he's going to play it, and the people that are going to be sacrificed ultimately in the team's greater good and for the results. And I think that's one thing that hopefully will come out of this, that yes, Nancy didn't get it right, fair enough, but it isn't his failure. It's Celtic's board's failure.
Yeah, I would completely agree with what Alan said there, and yeah, I think that probably was reflected by the fans on Saturday when Celtic went behind. That a lot of the chants weren't sack Nancy; it was sack the board still. And yeah, I think it certainly could have been different for Wilfried Nancy if he had come in the summer, but ultimately he didn't. He came in and he had to get results by any means, like we've seen Danny Rowe obviously do across the city, and then Martin O'Neill before him, and he didn't do that, so he had to go pretty much. And yeah, that's why I think it'll be really interesting to see if Celtic go into the market for another full-time appointment before the end of the season, or whether they sort of wait and go with Sean Maloney or Martin O'Neill or something like that until the end of the season, and then gets a manager in that's promising. You would say, I'd say Wilfried Nancy was a promising manager. He obviously done very well in MLS, which, as I've said, is completely different to the Scottish Premiership, but still successful regardless. And then give him a full pre-season and what he needs and the tools he needs.
Do you not think that's the challenge, though, Ethan? Because like the thing is, I think like the way you said there, I think Celtic, obviously, you're recruiting. I don't know what his title was, Paul Tisdale, Director of Football Operations or something. So you're not just recruiting for a manager. There's a more senior figure at play. So I'd almost say that the only real possibility just now is a safe bet, and the safest bet is the Martin O'Neill Maloney combination, or one of, because they know the club, they've just been there, and the fans will get a bit on side initially, because you bring in say you spend 4 weeks looking for a new manager, you find somebody, you bring him in. The January window's gone.
Yeah, they've
got their own playing style. The players have then played like 3 or 4 playing styles over the course of a season, and you're looking at it going, "What? This is a basket case." Do you sack the next manager before the summer window, or what do you do? So I think the only option is a Maloney or a O'Neill Maloney double, and just play it safe, get through the season, get somebody planned in the door. Come the last game of the season, they walk straight in, and there's no excuse.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. That's the only way I see it. I see it going if Celtic are to be, talking about Wilfried Nancy being naive, if the Celtic board are to be, I think they would be naive to go and try and get a manager who's very strong in the style that he wants to play and stuff like that to come in it would just be the same mistake again, and then you wouldn't even have a couple of days of a January transfer that Wilfried Nancy had. You would just have to ride out until the summer. That's why I think it will be Sean Maloney. But the only concern I have with that is that you lack the character of someone like Martin O'Neill coming in. I think we understand that probably in the modern day game, Sean Maloney was behind a lot of the tactics that Celtic played with when the pair were there. But yeah, I think they've got to get someone in, and I think it will be Sean Maloney.
Do you think there's any risk, if you've got Aberdeen looking for a manager as well, do you think there's any risk for Falkirk and Motherwell fans at the moment?
Well, sorry, what you asking, Alan?
And saying and you're looking at how successful Motherwell are doing. You look at John McGlynn's obviously been at Celtic before, that kind of thing. Do you think there's a risk to Falkirk and Motherwell fans?
Yeah, I mentioned that that I've seen a few Celtic fans certainly talking about Jens Bertholascu, and I don't think Celtic would go for him. I think he's been an excellent manager and possibly one of the best in the league at the moment. Well, certainly one of the best in the league at the moment, if not the best in the league at the moment. But I think he's probably got to prove it over a season. I think he will do the same for John McGlynn. He's obviously proven over seasons now that he's a very good operator, and he's carried that into the Premiership. And I think Aberdeen probably would be sniffing around him. I don't see any chance of any of them going to Celtic. I just don't think Celtic would go there. Maybe they will. I don't know, but yeah, I see Celtic just going with Sean Maloney, the boring and what you could call safe. But I think Aberdeen may try and go back up that tree to those two candidates.
Okay, so we've got to say bye to Alan Risk at this point, but thanks for joining us on the show, and hopefully we'll speak to you in a few weeks on the show. So that was Alan Risk coming on the show as well. It's been a crazy season at Heidi, but it's not finished yet. Anything can happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's been one of a mad season. I think it's probably one of the best seasons in Scottish football we've had. Obviously, 2 manager sackings in the space of a couple of days. One yesterday and obviously one this afternoon. It's been mental how it's all planned out. And obviously, you look at underdog teams this season, like Falkirk, who are in the top 6. Motherwell, who are sitting 4th in a great position. Rangers, who have came back under Danny Rowe after a shocking start to the season under Russell Martin. It's been probably one of the best seasons, and obviously the league is still open, but I think what best for Celtic to do is just bring in Sean Maloney or Martin O'Neill, whatever, till the end of the season, get the league title, whatever, get it wrapped up, and then in the summer bring in a new manager, and then he can have time, like Postecoglou did, have time for pre-season to get players in, have his own philosophy, then the players have got a few months to work on that. Whereas appointing Nancy when it was a absolute terrible time where we had such big games coming up, like Roma, like a cup final, like a derby, I think it was too much the job for him. So I think the safest option for me was just bring Sean Maloney or Martin O'Neill, or just somebody that knows Celtic for now, and then obviously we'll just need to wait and see if there'll be a permanent manager. But I would give a permanent manager maybe when the summer transfer window opens, and then the manager's got time to look at players, and then it can't be criticised then because he has to have time. But obviously just see what happens. But Scottish football this season has been mental.
Regan, do you think that football managers and all that make football too complicated? It's meant to be a straightforward game. It's meant to you put the ball in the back of the net and you win the game. But in terms of managers coming in, changing the system, down in England now you've got different coaches for a striker coach, a flown coach. I mean, I don't want to sound very old, but I'm very old. But I remember the day when you just had a manager and 2 assistant managers in the physio. Now you've got you've got to make the dugouts bigger because you've got about more coaches than the team on the park.
I think that's spot on, and I think the worst thing for Nancy was as well, guys, was see every match. I mean, Nancy was coming out on Tuesday night after Motherwell and saying it was a very interesting game. I mean, the most important thing
I
for
know.
Celtic, see, the most important thing for Celtic guys is Celtic get the 3 points. That's the most important thing. I
Exactly.
mean, to go out there and say it's an interesting game when Celtic hardly had a shot against Motherwell is just crazy for me. And then he comes in against Dundee United and says Celtic are very, very positive. Well, I don't know what positive things he was watching, but I mean, I just think sometimes the managers need to be reality checked in terms of saying the right things as well. I know they're media trained, I know they say things like that, but I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing is Celtic and Rangers is you get a manager in to win matches. I mean, take Danny Rowe for example. Danny Rowe's playing some honking football, but Rangers are winning matches, so Rangers fans don't care.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think honking football is maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but I do get your point that it's not, I don't know, it's not the most free-flowing, excellent football that Rangers are playing, but they're getting results, and that's what it's about, and that's what Celtic weren't doing under Wilfried Nancy. In fairness, I don't think it really mattered what Wilfried Nancy would say in a press conference. I think the talking or the lack of talking was done on the pitch, and that's why he's lost his job. And I think I understand Michael's point. I think managers do overcomplicate it sometimes, or modern day managers anyway, but I think it's just the evolution of the game that there's more and more emphasis on the little things, the little details, set piece coaches, stuff like that. Data analytics we've obviously seen be very effective at Hearts this season, so obviously encourages stuff like that when you see how well Hearts have done with using that stuff. And then obviously I think Rangers recently hired a set piece coach as well. So yeah, it's becoming part of the game, and I imagine it's only going to go in the same trajectory where we get more and more analytical as time goes on.
So if you're watching the show for the first time, subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube. We're on TikTok as well, and you can download the show as a podcast as well. We'll be back tomorrow night for the Rangers Aberdeen game and Livingston St Mirren game on the show. How do you think the players will react to the news? Obviously you would imagine like the sacking would have came like early on this afternoon, but the news just came out about 2:00. But I mean, what do you think the reaction will be?
I think obviously the players obviously be gutted for a manager to lose their job, of course, but I think at the end of the day, I think the players were just not working under him. Like they weren't getting him. Like even like Luke McKibben the other day coming out saying he's obviously this isn't the standard we set at Celtic, and even like when Callum McGregor was like going up, like Wilfried Nancy was going up to Callum McGregor, like showing him a wee tactic board, like what's that? Like that's not helping him. Like I think what the problem is, Wilfried Nancy overcomplicated it than it needed to be, and I think the players look so like lackluster, just didn't want to play under him. So I think maybe the players obviously feel a bit maybe relief, maybe hopefully we can just go back to playing what we know as a 4-back team, not a 3-back team. But we'll just obviously see what happens. But obviously the players obviously will just probably just be kind of sad to see a man lose a job, of course. But I think the players will think maybe maybe we can show how we actually want to play instead of the manager where we didn't really want to work under. They just didn't. They just didn't feel they wanted to work under Nancy, and I just think the players just kind of lost it. The players just looked deflated. Like even McGregor as well, and our top, even Casper Schmeichel, just trusty. Like a lot of the players just didn't look up for it. So I think it was the right call to just get rid of him, and hopefully, I wish him nothing but the best, of course. But we'll just obviously need to see what happens.
I mean, Ethan kind of makes a good point there as well, because basically, sorry, I think you made the point as well, Reagan. Like when Martinelli come in, I think the players got a bounce from it, but also that the football was a wee bit better than Brendan Rodgers in terms of they weren't playing square balls at the back, but they were still getting results. And you could maybe say the same thing that's happened to Danny Rowe at the moment at Rangers, because if you ask any Rangers fans, okay, they'll be happy that they win on Saturday, Ethan, but the football hasn't been brilliant for a wee while. But so the point is this: as you win more games, the more confident that you get. When you lose games, it's basically you're going into a big dark hole, and it's difficult to get out.
Yeah, football is all about, and sports in general's a lot of it. Obviously, a lot of it's physical and technical ability, but a lot of it's mentality as well. And the Celtic players just didn't have the mentality to go out and fight for their manager, I don't think. And it's not solely on them, because the results obviously build up, become more and more negative. They keep losing games in the second half, like we've seen as a key theme. So, yeah. I think that's something that obviously played a big part in why the Wilfried Nancy probably lost the Celtic dressing room. If you listen into Luke McKeown's comments and just watch them on the pitch. And then for Danny Rowe, he's flipped the switch at Rangers, although he's not done anything revolutionary. He's not done anything special. He's got Rangers winning games and in the title race, which is far from where they were under Russell Martin, who could barely get a win, never mind string a few together. And yeah, I think that's why Rangers are in such a positive place at the minute, because they had no expectations at the start of the season under Russell Martin, and now they're really confident that they can go on and challenge Hearts and obviously challenge Celtic, who I think we all now expect to be a little bit more of a threat that Wilfried Nancy's been dismissed.
I mean, how do you see how on Saturday? Obviously you saw in the second half Celtic was playing a weird formation, because obviously it was like not three at the back, it was like one at the back as well. It was a bit weird. I've never saw a football team kind of doing it before.
Yeah. It was obviously really strange, and he just, I don't know what he said in that dressing room at halftime. Like, what is he saying to the players? Because Danny Rowe made changes. He turned off Asgard and brought on Diamonde, and they changed the game. Wilfried Nancy didn't do that. Wilfried Nancy took far too long to realise and make a change. And I think that was a problem in the second half. And I think a lot of, obviously, it's not him that's obviously caused the mistakes of the goal, but it's his tactics. They never worked under the players who didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a clue, like they weren't know where they were going, like they were all in wrong positions, like they were all everywhere over the park. So it was a bit of a disaster second half, and it's mad how we can dominate a game for like the first half for 45 minutes, and then the second half next 45 just play absolute dreadful, and due to Rangers making changes and knowing what they're doing, and that's how they won the game.
Why do you think that is, Reagan? Like, because obviously you can actually sit here and say, well, if Celtic had a decent striker, Nancy might have still been in the job. I don't know. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I mean, if you look back at the games, I mean, John Kennedy scored 2 hat-tricks in every game. I mean, look at the chance they had against Aberdeen, a kind of open goal. You look at the chances that he had against Saturday against Rangers in the first half. But Heige makes a brilliant point as well, because obviously I'm calling up till now Celtic the one half team, because they only play well in the first half and the second half. I don't know what happens at half time, but when they come out in the second half, Reagan, it's a completely different team.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I've always said for the longest time that the most important person at any football club is the manager. And I just don't think these players really bought into him. I don't think he's got the authority in the dressing room. I mean, you'll even look at the Schmeichel. He's been awful for the last few weeks. But who's got a better football reputation? Schmeichel or Wilfried Nancy? Schmeichel. So do they honestly believe that Wilfried Nancy is going to speak up to Schmeichel? I mean, obviously people are going to say to me, "But that's what Nancy's been brought in for." But he's not done anything of note to warrant the Celtic job. And I mean, you look at people like McGregor. McGregor's not done one media interview since Nancy's been appointed. So what does that tell you?
And on the back of that as well, Ethan and Heidi, I don't know if you picked up on this as well, but I was saying to Reagan last night, do you not think it's a bit weird for a manager to do his first press conference up at Lennoxtown? Now, I don't know if people knows this when they're watching the show, but when Celtic appoints a new manager, they always do it up at one of the lounges up at Celtic Park, and the chief executive there. But he done it at Lennoxtown. He done it with his cracks on. Okay, that's not gonna make any difference. But it was just for himself. He found that it was Michael Nicholson wasn't there, and I found that was a bit weird, because if I see any football team, even in Scotland and England, they always have the chief executive introducing the new manager to the media.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably down to the fact that Michael Nicholson and his peers didn't want to face the crowd, and it obviously came not too long after the AGM, or lack of AGM, however you want to describe it. So yeah, I just don't think that Michael Nicholson really felt in a place to sit in front of the press and answer questions, as he wasn't. I'll say, I'm assuming that they went and they didn't want to answer questions from the supporters at the AGM, when they, I would say, probably provoked the Celtic fans into working their way out of the AGM room.
Hi, do you see if the game finished 1 each on Saturday? Do you think Nancy would still get the sack?
It's a good question. I think he probably would have, but obviously a draw I would have taken it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still not a win game. Like, he's still not won the game. Obviously, it's still like 6 games without a win. I think he probably still would have. I think the Celtic fans would still have been on the board's back regardless. So if we did draw that game, maybe different, but I think it was, end of the day, if we lost the game, I think it done maybe Celtic fans a favour getting rid of him. Like, it done us a favour, but end of the day, I think that it would have, I don't know actually if we drew the game, it would have maybe been different, but because we lost the game, I think the board had to make the call at the right time.
And I think as well, guys, like, as much as we talk about Scottish football and brilliant and stuff like that, I mean, you've got to say as well that if you look at Motherwell, you look at even David Gray's Hypebeast, they're only 4 points behind Celtic. So you could be looking at Celtic possibly finishing fourth or fifth in the table.
And I think as well, Ethan, that the board will be panicking as well, because obviously, as I spoke to you last night, Rangers this game against Aberdeen tomorrow night. Now, if Rangers win, then they would go above Celtic in the table.
Yeah, they would. For the first time this season, obviously, I think it's just goals scored they're behind Celtic, not even goal difference at the minute. So the slenderest of margins, and yeah, I'd imagine they will go above Celtic. They would have to lose the game to not go above Celtic. A draw would even be enough, but I see them beating Aberdeen pretty convincingly, if I'm being honest. But obviously Celtic will get the return next week when they play away. I think it is to Falkirk next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then, I think that means that every team in the league after that game will be on the same amount of games, because obviously there's a few teams in the league that have game in hands. Celtic, Rangers, St Mirren have 2, so they're playing this midweek and next midweek, and then the league table will look a whole lot more organised, and you can really work out how each team's doing. You can do that anyway, but obviously it's better when every team has played the same amount of games. And there'll be pressure on Celtic to pick up maximum points over the next 2 games.
There you go. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, do that. We're on the Scottish Football Zone. We're on TikTok as well, and we're all over the shop. A bit like Celtic at the minute, you would say. Thanks to Heidi, thanks to Reagan, and thanks to Ethan for joining us. Thanks to Alan Risky, Iona Manike, to get 10 minutes to you because he is not match fit, but I'm sure he'll be match fit when Celtic comes to the Falkirk Ski game next Wednesday night. Talking about midweek games, we'll be back tomorrow night covering the game between Livingston and St Mirren and Rangers at Rangers at home to Aberdeen. Reagan, you won't see Reagan tomorrow night. Maybe there's a pitch inspection at Fairhill tomorrow, so you might see him tomorrow night. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to the show. We'll be back tomorrow night for all the build up to the Rangers Aberdeen game and St Mirren, Livingston St Mirren game. Sorry, we'll be on at 7:15 tomorrow night. So join us then. So just to tell you the biggest kept secret ever. Wilfried Nancy is heading to the airport. He's been fired by Celtic.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.